Welcome everyone to this very first edition of our podcast. Caranthir, how are you?
Doing well yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. All right, well tonight we have a very, very good question to get things going. And that is, who are we? Give us a good chance to talk about us, talk about our personal life, of course keep it in the context of World of Warcraft. So I'll start. I would say that one of the main traits or the main attributes about me that have really translated into success in the guild was the mentality that the buck stops here, which it's a saying, of course, the buck stops here. And the idea is that as a GM, you have to understand every single aspect that is required to run a guild, like every single area, every single task, every single procedure. You have to be aware of each one of those. You can't kind of like look over your shoulder and expect someone to be responsible for that. And so you also need to understand what aspects you're not capable of doing, rather because you're not good at it or because you don't have the time. And you need to then ask people to help you do those things. You need to be able to trust people, manage them, and sort of like guide them into asking them to do exactly what you need. And at the same time, you're also keeping track of those people you have assigned, their performance and how they're doing, because again, you are responsible for every single thing that goes on in the guild.
Right, and let me I guess put an example into the air here. In my experience, I'm not the best at sitting down and finding, every little thing that this guild needs to stay together. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very, I would guess I would call it a very decent raid leader, but at the same time, I have my own problems. I don't want to put in as much time into recruiting as we probably need. I don't have the skills to handle the everything that the guild is going to require. I can handle the raid perfectly fine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I can come in every week. I can be that person who tells us what we need to do, what needs to happen, how we're going, and we can go from there. But at the same time, that's not Lalore's personality. But I mean, he fits in as a good assistant, but his personality just doesn't necessarily fit for the raid leader, which is
Mm-hmm.
fine.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their thing. So
Exactly. And I think also one of the things that has helped us a lot that I kind of learn on my own, I bring up to the guild, is just the idea of being organized. And it's a very good principle, is that you keep an eye out, on things that are needed to run a guild. Anything from, of course, recruiting, progression. But the idea is that you try your best to make it a consistent process, or as I call it, a system. And so slowly you get organized. Just as a quick example, when we took over, I started noticing that a lot of the raids and a lot of the new recruits would ask the same questions. And even though we had made a post on the website explaining those questions, they still just asked them. And so we realized, well, that post is just not being successful. Even if you point them to it on the app, it's just not being successful. So again, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. The buck stops here. So I, as a GM, take responsibility that the current system we have is just not informing the raiders of what they need. So we need another thing, and that's where the orientation started. And so I realized, okay, every raider needs an orientation. Well, when can we do them? And then they would kind of settle into, okay, Tuesday, 30 minutes before raid, just one time. Everyone is able to do it, so it's been working great. So I quickly jot down what it was needed. I don't need to get into a lot of details, but that's my point, is that you organize yourself and you try your best to just always be looking out for, how can I make this a process? How can I make this a procedure? Thinking that you are going to then maybe in the future hand it to someone. So it also has to be simple. It has to be that it can be taught to other people, because eventually you're going to be busy and you want to be able to just hand out things to other people. And I would say the other thing that has helped me a lot, and I learned this from my dad actually, is, I think you're gonna agree with this one, Kara, is that you never lie to your raiders. Like, that's one part of it. But the other side is, well, and the other side is that you need to be good at managing the truth. And it's not necessarily that you withhold it. Well, actually, you're withholding truth for them, but it's not for their demise. It's not for their, misfortune. It's the opposite. It's not with malicious intent, if you will. It's the opposite. Is it's for the purpose of helping them. It's kind of like they don't need to know every single aspect that went behind their analysis of output. They just need to know what they need to be working. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. I think it could be better summed up as they need to know what they need to know in order to do their job. It's just like any other job you go into. You walk in the first day, the boss isn't going to tell you what their profits and losses are. They're not going to tell you that this is the fast track to getting to be my position. They're going to tell you what you need to do. They're going to tell you how to do it, and they're going to expect you to do it. And as much as this is a game for a lot of us, raid leading essentially becomes a job. Leading a guild becomes essentially a job. Mm-hmm. And I guess the trick to it is make it enjoyable.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can't make it enjoyable, then you're probably in the wrong profession.
Well, what aspect of your personality do you think helps in making the guild fun?
So, outside of raiding, I'm a pretty carefree guy. I don't take a lot of things to heart that happen inside of raid. Sure, things get heated and whatnot, but there's also plenty of times where I've seen a lot of things happen. I've come back, and the next day I'm talking to the same person that I just had this gigantic argument with, as if nothing happened. And you have to understand that the raid leading version of some of yourself can and most definitely should be separate than the person you are outside of raid. If you're exhausting yourself trying to be yourself in both spots, you could end up either not doing enough or overdoing it. You need to be a business person when you are in charge of something. And again, you can have fun at your job, and that's what you got to find, the happy medium.
Yeah, well said. Now, one of the points that I was touching earlier is, like, for example, just pretty much an example that summarizes the whole points that we've made, is that let's say that you have a raider that is giving you just bad attitude. He is complaining in raid chat, he's not listening, he makes noise when you have to put him on standby. Well, you as a GM, you first notice, well, that's my responsibility. Again, we go back to the buck stops here. That's my responsibility. That even if I held Caranthir accountable for the raid's morale, which you're not, by the way, just in this example you are, it is my responsibility to be making sure that Caranthir is doing a good job. So at the end of the day, GM, it's on you, because everything is on you.
Let me step in here.
Sure.
To an effect, we are responsible for their morale. Absolutely. If they're playing in a version of themselves where they are upset, where they are not distraught, where they're pissed off, there's a good chance they're not performing to the expectation you want them to or what you want them to. Now, if they're sitting there and they're playing to the point where they're enjoying the time there, they're enjoying what they're doing, chances are they're going to play better than they've ever played in their life. And getting them to that point can be a whole lot of extra work. Now, at the same time, if you're the kind of person I am, you enjoy helping out people. You want them to do better. You want them to do well, whether it be in their real life, whether it be in the game.
Yeah.
Be genuinely interested in your raider. If you can't do that, it's hard to connect with them. It's hard to make it. It's hard to make it so you can figure out what's going to make them play better, what's going to make them tick, in essence.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so that's when, so for example, the issue arises, you try to deal as best as you can in the moment, but then after it happens, you think yourself, how can I make this easier the next time? How can I create a system, a process of, if this happens again, we have a system. So and really just keep trying things like things that make sense. Like for example, next time that this happens, I'll whisper the guy. Or if not, we'll do EP deductions. But the point is, you try to be organized by just making a system behind the issues that keep arising as a guild, because they always will. Now, with that, let's move on to the next question that we have for the podcast of today. And very interesting question is just talk about a little about our credentials. So the question, I guess, would be, why can we say we have been a successful guild for more than 3 years now?
So, should we start from the beginning?
Sure.
I guess I'll start with where I came from.
Do it.
I started out in this game back in vanilla. I never got serious into the game. I just played it for fun. I was too young to pay for the game myself. I didn't have any money to speak of, so I couldn't actually do anything with it. I played a rogue back then. Yeah, I had fun with it. I never played any of BC, and then finally in Late Wrath, I found a way to pay for the game.
Nice.
To make it so I could actually get into raiding, do stuff. I was on a server, very dead server, to the point where they ended up linking it later on, called Archimond. It was at the time when I first joined it, it was pretty balanced, and then when I came back to it, it was very horde dominated. Well, I wasn't happy there, so I found a friend who was raiding on a different server, and joined him, and I started raiding there in a guild called Immortals. It was called Immortals. That guild didn't go very far. It broke apart a few months after me and a friend joined it, and we both decided to go our separate ways raiding. I went to a guild called Gravity Gets Us Down, led by a real good friend of mine who I still talk to today. He no longer plays the game. But, and from there, I spent most of my time making the path to where I am today. The guild, I raid led that guild for a very short time. I figured at the time it wasn't for me, and I gave it up, and I went searching for better progression. The guild I was raid leading at the time was at TOT, Throne of Thunder, was one of 12 normal, and we couldn't kill Horadon, which was, to me, wasn't enough. No. So I said, you know what? I'm done with this. I leveled a brand new druid for that guild. I continued raiding with them until the guild broke apart. Gave up the raid lead position, gave up and just decided to raid with them. Well, going back to the tune that I transferred off, I went to Horde for my probably last time. There'd have to be something special for me to go back Horde again. Just throwing that out there. Not a Horde person. But I went Tauren Druid to a guild called Graveyard Shift on Illidan. And that guild picked me up as a 1 of 12 normal, and they were 1 of 13 heroic, which now in these days would be considered mythic. So in the first week, I went from a 1 of 12 normal druid, resto druid, to a 1 of 13 resto druid. And from then, in that guild, 3 months later, it broke apart. The raid lead and his co-raid lead had issues. They could no longer raid, and they told us to find new guilds. So 3 months later, I'm back looking for another guild. Hey, it happens. Shit happens. I'm not too worried about it. It was a good experience, and they boosted my progression. So soon after that, I put myself onto the forums for World of Warcraft, looking for a guild. Give him my story, telling him where I've been, how I got to where I am. And this guild that is 10 of 13 heroic sends me a message telling me, hey, we're looking for a Resto Druid. We were happy to see how fast you came up in progression. And being at the time it was a 10-man, there wasn't a whole lot of carrying going on. So you had to be worth something in order to do that.
That's true.
So they messaged me, I messaged them back, and here I am back. Now I'm on Sargeras. This was my first expenditure into the world of Alliance on Sargeras. And that guild went all the way through TOT. We got our Rod End kill. We got our Cutting Edge. We continued through into Siege of Orgrimmar. We cleared that raid as a top 25 guild on the server. And we did very well. We sold mounts, everything. We did a really good job. You know, Heimdall came out. We had a few theological differences, as well as people who had to quit the game, and that guild unfortunately fell apart. It was a very fun guild. I enjoyed being there. I guess the name of the guild when I joined it was called Pendulum. It was a 10-man. When we went to 25-man to get ready for 20-man mythics, we called it Delicate Sensibilities. Great name. Lovely name. And unfortunately, like I said, that guild fell apart. And then that's how I ended up here with Astroglide.
Woo.
I decided, and this was actually it was ironic because I told my raid leader when they decided to call the guild quits. I said, well, I'll search the forums, and if I don't have a guild by the next couple days, I'll probably just end up quitting the game. And
that's true, yeah.
I applied at 2 guilds. Both of
By
them
the way, just real quick, like we are Astroglide. That's our guild.
Yeah, that is. I did say that's how I'm here in Astroglide.
That's true. That's true. All right, keep going. Yeah.
Anyways, so 2 guilds whispered me back. The one told me they didn't want me because I didn't have Twin Ogron killed in Mythic difficulty in Heimdall, and the other one told me they were looking for a boomkin for immediate progression. And I said, well, I'm a boomkin. So at the time, by the way, I made the progression over to boomkin in Siege of Orgrimmar when we went to 25-man. So I said I was resto at TOT. I made that progression back then.
Mm-hmm.
Back to present day, we decided. I decided to join the guild here, Astroglide. At the time, it was in the control of I want to say it was Kabugi. Yeah, it was Kabugi. Priest, real good friend. We still talk to him. He's still in the guild. Still logs on now and then, does shit with us.
Yeah, pretty good.
Soon after that, in BRF, his brother Tarth took over. Protection Paladin. Also a good friend.
Yeah, definitely.
Who is no longer part of the guild. He hardly plays anymore. But, yeah, every now and then, say hi to him. And then the guild went to Lalore here. And we are sitting where we are sitting because even through the years and all the turmoil that myself has been through in guilds collapsing and whatnot, and through multiple guild lead switches and raid lead switches, we are sitting here as a 6 of 9 mythic guild, looking at our 7th kill possibly this week, and we've made progress. We're in the best spot this guild has ever been in my opinion, and not just because Lalore and I are sitting here in control of it. We definitely have our part to play, but we also have to thank all of our raiders that have stuck it out with us through time and through couple of rough patches,
all 3 years,
as well as a couple of newer people who have showed up and absolutely done a great job helping this guild become something. And that's pretty much my story.
Yeah, and going what you're saying about the raiders just ticking up for us, that shows you the good quantity of raids we have had. That every raid for the past 3 years, we've had the 20 people that we need to do the content, and just having that, or being able to say that, it comes with a lot of implications, because it means that the raiders trust your system, the raiders trust you as a GM and as a raid leader, the guild trusts, your raiders trust the future of the guild. You're good at managing hope and managing attendance, so there's a lot of positives there when you can say that for 3 years you have consistently being able to raid. And now the second part of it is, well, the quality of this raids that you're mentioning, and that's where we still deliver, absolutely. Because throughout the 3 years, we have been, hovering around top 30 to top 15 Sargeras, which is equal to about 1,400 to 2,200, worldwide. So about 1,400 to 2,200 worldwide.
Right. So I guess now it begs the question: how'd you get here, Lalore?
Well, I got here because I knew Unloaded, who knew this group of friends that they've knew each other for a long time, which were, Charlie, Andrew, their brothers in real life, and it's just that really close group of friends.
Also, Kabugi and Tarth, the 2 people who at one point led this guild.
Exactly, and so just WoW was one of their multiple games that we played. They played together. They still play D&D together. But my point is that I came in because they needed a druid. I was kind of itching playing WoW again. I was big before this. before coming back during Lich King, but a different guild. And when Andrew decided to step down to focus on his PhD, which of course makes total sense, Mike, which would have been the guy that would have taken the whole responsibility, just said, you know what, I think we should take a break and then come back for Hellfire and kind of regroup. And Patrick or Unloaded stepped in and said, well, no, we'll take over it. And that's kind of when the position became available. And I said, well, yeah, I have time. I really have the interest. I was really looking forward to being a GM and just the opportunity. And so I said, hell yeah. And it's funny because I look at it back then, and the plan was me as GM, you staying as loot officer, because that was you. You were the loot master. And then having fucking Patrick and Adam as my officers.
Patrick being a hunter as a ranged officer, and Lokek being a rogue as a melee officer.
Yeah, and within a month, both of them really stepped down as officer. Patrick's schedule changed, and really a lot of his real life stuff changed, so he had to step down. And then Lokek, it just didn't really work out. I think he did it. I think he made a solid shot for me, but it just didn't. He wasn't really enjoying it.
Talking to him after a while that had come by, he came. I talked to him about it, and he said he did it because the guild needed it. And then once we no longer needed it, he was happy to have stepped down and go just back to being a raider.
Exactly. And so, and I would say that just I guess to finish the backstory is that I always say that the reason why the guild's still here is just because of you, Kara. It was just great. Like I said, every year you just became better. Like when you. By the end of that year, so we're talking about December 2014, by the end of that year, like you were already stepping into being a raid leader. So it's like I always kind of, any comment and feedback that you gave me, I always kind of treated you like an officer, because he was just you and me. It was you and me versus everyone else. And so my point is, like every year, I guess every month, then you just got better, and to eventually you became a main part as an officer that pretty much at this point has the same saying as I do, and of course the raid leader. But so in summary, you can say that it's both the quantity and the quality in these past 3 years. But here's the key that I want to make about both those things, is that for the amount of hours that we're asking you to put in to be in this guild, we can say then that we have been very successful. Because we're not on the top 20 of Sargeras, but we're not asking you to have 6-7 alts. Like we're not there. We're not interested in being there. So we're not going to be pursuing the top, the top 10 in Sargeras, the top I guess the top 1,000 worldwide. But for a guild that asks you to raid 10.5 hours, and I guess in total at least be putting 15, maybe 20 hours into the game, you get your money's worth from us. You get hope, you get rotation. We work with you in checking your DPS, making sure it's up to par. So that's why I would say, again, staying between 14 to 2,200 worldwide, a guild that rates 3 nights per week, which I guess would be considered a semi-hardcore or semi-casual, I guess. But that's what I would say. That's what we can say, that we have been a successful guild for the past 3 years.
I would go as far as saying the dedication to the guild that we've seen from certain individuals plays a huge part in that as well. Not just you and I.
That's true.
Had we had our rogue Lokek, Adam, our hunter Unloaded, Pat, a couple of other people who have been raiding with us for the last couple of years, had they not stuck around, we wouldn't have a player base to build off of. We wouldn't have the people we needed to rebuild the guild when we had to keep recruiting and keep going when times got tough. And it's part of it is because they feel we can do the job we're doing. Part of it is because I think one of them just doesn't want to find another guild, but hey, I'm not going to argue with that. I'll take it since I enjoy having him here and he enjoys playing with us. It comes down to we as a whole, not just Lalore and I, we as a whole, the guild, Astroglide, always aims to be better, always aims to persevere, always aims to better the quality in which we are playing this game. And if that is something we stop achieving, then that is something we'll have to take a look at and wonder what went wrong, how do we fix it, and do our damnedest to put it back on the correct path. It's not something that is usually it's fixed now. It's something that takes work. We had to do a lot to this guild to get it to where it is today. The theology in which the raid leads were led have changed.
Oh,
The
yeah.
theology behind how loot is handled has changed. We've 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 changed how people view coming into raid. A lot of people want to be here every night.
Yeah.
They want to know, they want to be in on these boss attempts. They want to kill stuff. But at the same time, there are people who come in and I think they're just coming into raid. I don't want those people here. As terrible as it is to say, I don't want those kind of people. Those people will cause toxic environments. They will drag people down. They'll usually be negative all the time. And honestly, if that's all they want to do, all they're going to do is make my raiding environment worse.
No, yeah, well said, definitely. And with the amount of time we have left, let's move on to the last question. And that is, what will our audience get out of this? So why should you listen to us, if you will? Well, I guess the same question would be, why are we doing this, right? Why are we taking the time and time to put that out there back to the community? And I think the best way that I can summarize it is that we're trying to give you a map to a successful guild. So of course our audience is those people that want to run a guild or are running a guild and I'm finding difficulties and just want to get ideas. This is us just giving back to the community of a game that we loved, just a lot, really. And so we're just giving back to the community and telling you these are the tools that we have discovered through trial and error, and we're also giving back even to us, but this is our contribution. We're telling you what works for us, what should be avoided, and of course it's going to be along several podcasts, but that's what we're doing. We're doing our best to give you a map to a successful guild. And now the interesting thing, though, is that the map is not going to be the territory. So that territory is going to be unique to your guild, unique to your personality, to your officer's personality, to your own strengths and weaknesses as a person, as an administrator, as an industrious, as a player as well. But I would say that we're trying our best to give you a map, to give you the tools, to give you different ways that you can deal with the issues that are common to happen on any guild, like problematic raiders, a boss that is not progressing as well as you should, dealing with disappointments, dealing with success as well. And so this is us just doing our best to schedule it, to map it, to answer the questions, to just do our best to say, this is us, 3 years of experience of just him and I together, non-stopping. Now, we haven't stopped for a single week. Everything has been just going on their schedule. And I'm sure that there's a lot of things that you can try, that you can learn, and that you can just make your guild better. So does that make sense, Kara?
I guess I would have a different response to that. I think other things that they could aim to get out of this guild, or out of our guild, but out of these podcasts, is they can see what happened to us. They can maybe take that to what they're maybe starting up as a guild, or even a guild that may be on its downfall, and hear what we did, what we had to do, what we've had to deal with, and maybe come up with something different that may save them, that may get them to recover. Because honestly, as much as I want our guild to succeed, and I want everybody who's good to be in our guild, and I want everybody who's gonna do our guild some sort of justice to be part of us. At the same time, some people aren't going to want to come. Some people at that time are going to want to just hear what we have to say, just so that they may be able to do something on their own. And good for all of you who may be listening that want to make something happen. If the only thing you take away from something like this is that there's an ability always to make something work, make something better, then I think we've done our job, because it's not us trying to tell you that, you know, everything is unicorns and rainbows. It's there are some hard times, and if you can get past them, you can always make something better.
Yeah, very, very well said. All right, well, we have run out of time, but this was, again, the very first podcast in a series that Caranthir and I, I'm Lalore, you can call me Petey, that's what everybody calls me. Again, we're just trying to give back to the community, and just share the many, many things that we've learned in this adventure.
Well, honestly, as you guys see or listen to this, by all means, you know, post comments, ask us questions. Yep. We'll answer whatever we can possibly answer to make things easier for you guys. If it's a comment, or if it's a concern, if it's just a straight up question because you don't know what's going on, we'll do what we can.
Yep, just leave us a comment, or if you want to keep it private, you can just send us a message through YouTube. We'll figure it out. But yeah, we're here to also answer any questions that you guys have. So definitely leave us a comment, like Kara mentioned. Leave us a like, and thanks for listening. Thanks for the support. And anything left to add, Kara?
No, I think this is gonna work out for us. And if you guys are interested, you know, feel free to look us up. Astroglide at Sargeras. We enjoy people even just, you know, keeping up with us and knowing what's going on, because more friends you have, the better you can, you know, make things happen. Whether it be asking someone how a strat was handled, how something can come through. So, you know, just be friendly. We can help you.
Definitely. All right, guys. Well, thanks again for listening. Please leave us a comment. Yep. Thank you, Kara, as usual, and we will talk soon.